They are an absolute machine when it comes to these 200+ run chases, especially at the Wankhede. The fourth time they've done it in a season where we've already seen more than twice the number of successful 200+ run chases than any other IPL season. Cameron Green's first T20 100 lights up the Mumbai Indians' chances. They go into the top 4. They finish their campaign on a high, but they'll be there only if RCB fail to pick up 2 points in what will be the final game of the league stage of IPL 2023. We'll come to that and the weather at Bangalore in a little while. For now, we look back at how well Mumbai have managed this run chase of 201 and confirmed Sunrisers to finish bottom of the table. All that and more. Visit Saudi presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time. Our Deep Dasgupta and Tom Moody to just look back at a remarkable run chase led by one of the better T20 hundreds by a foreign player in his first IPL season, that too, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, considering the pressures that he came into this IPL, he picked up a big price tag, which is not, you know, in his control. There's a few that had the same pressures in Sam Curran, and not so much for Ben Stokes because you know, he's been around the block a few times. But
Harry Brook too.
Harry Brook's another one. But just to, you know, at such a young age, I was going to say the green age, but but at a young age, he at 23 to be able to deal with those pressures and still be able to bring his best to the table. And, you know, that's a massive step for him in his IPL career and his relationship and career with Mumbai Indians, because he's not going too far.
Yeah, he's here to stay, isn't he?
Yes.
At 23, if this is Cameron Green, can you imagine what he'll be in a few years?
Absolutely. I mean, we were just having a chat. I mean, he's still kind of not developed as yet as a bowler, but I think he can be a proper out-and-out all-rounder. Somebody who merits a place as a bowler and as a batter. You know, one of those rare players. I mean, that's what he is. Give him another year or so. And batting-wise, I mean, I still remember we were covering the Australia Test series, and you could see that he has no issues against spin, which is the big question mark for overseas players. Obviously, he's very good against the quick, and he's only going to get better.
I also find the comparison with Harry Brook perhaps relevant, and nothing against Brook, Tom. It's been a tough season for him, but big price tag, overseas player, first IPL, and we talk about how Brook's batting position was moved around and somewhere meant it almost disrupted him. Cameron Green's batting position's been moved around. He's batted 6-7 in some games. He's coming off a disappointing non-finish against Lucknow. He's batted 3. He's open. It doesn't seem to have changed the way. What's the difference? What's worked for Green?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make, because I think one thing helps being an all-rounder, because you feel that you're contributing with both disciplines, and the other thing is you know, the fact that he's in more of a stable environment, and there's more, I suppose, stability in his role, the communication in what they expect from him, and you know, he's obviously, I think, probably a step ahead with regards to where Harry Brook is in his career. With regards to international cricket, may have seen a bit more, and you know, highs and lows of international cricket, and that helps you a lot, even though they're both at a similar stage in their careers. I
think that point of him coming to India and having a good bilateral series, Harry Brook still hasn't had that yet. I wonder if that made a difference.
Absolutely. Not just that, before that Sri Lanka he had a good series, so he's used to batting on surfaces like these. That's one. Secondly, also the way he's been handled. If you see, Cameron Green has only come out to bat when there's an early wicket. Otherwise, he's been batting at 5-6. So he hasn't been pushed. If there's a good start, then Surya comes in. So he doesn't have to come in and play spin straight away. So this is, I think,
the use has been smarter.
Exactly. So they know how to use him, and they've used him really well as compared to someone like Harry Brooks. I mean, you got to feel for him because he's also a class act. There's no two ways about that. But I think Cameron Green, maybe the franchise makes a huge difference.
That being said, he doesn't seem to have any obvious weaknesses?
No, absolutely not.
Right?
Absolutely not. But being the first year, it's always better, and obviously it helps to have someone like Surya to play those middle overs. So when you have Surya to play those middle overs, you really don't have to push someone like Cameron Green in there. Right? So you hand it over to Surya, and then he comes at 5-6 and does the other job then.
And the other thing to consider is, I just wonder around the communication with the player. What's the communication that Harry Brooks had? Has it been a case of just go out there and express yourself, just be yourself? It's a bit like what MS Dhoni said to Devon Conway. You know, in a post-match interview, Conway had said that, you know, the message from MS was basically just be yourself and have some fun type of thing. And it's an amazing, powerful message, as simple as it is.
Yes.
Where if you're getting a message that's, you know, a confusing message of, you know, this is how you need to play it. We want you to, you know, to pull the reins in here and be responsible. It's, in other words, go at 10 and over, but keep the ball along the ground with no risk. It's like, well, you know, what do you want from me? Where I think Cameron Green, in that environment, he's been set up as, well, you just do your thing. We know you've got a power game. If we lose an early wicket, you go out there and press the trigger and dominate the pace bowling, knowing that you've got the depth of batting. And if you don't, you'll play a finishing role. And he's failed in a couple of finishing roles as well. So he's learning all the time.
I wonder if you, as the management of Mumbai Indians, look back at this season for Cameron Green and say, yep, that was a damn good signing at the auction. Because at the time, we felt, yes, he's certainly worth it, but this may not be the franchise that needs him. They have a lot of batting, they don't have the bowling, and they've left themselves vulnerable there. They may or may not qualify. But are you sitting back and saying, yeah, that was a great signing?
Brilliant signing. At the time, I thought it was a good signing too. Out of the three all-rounders having sort of seen Cameron Green up close and personal for a long time and seen his development as soon as he came out of school into first-class cricket for Western Australia, the runs he was scoring were always tough runs. You know, he'd come in when the side were 4 down for 50, and suddenly, you know, the score was, you know, 300. You know, he has a mental strength to his game as well, apart from the you know, the natural skill and the technique to go with it.
All right, very good then. Interesting innings from Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, with a little help.
Yeah, a couple of, but I guess at the end of the day, the scorecard does what it he does. He did his job.
Yeah, there's no remark columns there. So yeah, but end of the day, I think again, it's the way he wants to play T20 cricket. I mean, that's the kind of template that he has now, where he wants to play shots. But I thought today he had a kind of a quiet start. He was run a ball for a good first 15-20 deliveries, and then he kind of accelerated and stuff. But it seemed like he picked up the pace a little later, but he started to time it better as well as the innings progressed. But it's a big bonus if they do qualify. Yeah. It's a big bonus, Rohit going in with a half century under the belt.
How dangerous is this team if they get the result their way in the Bangalore game? Because they're going to be playing away from the Wankhede, where there are questions. They're going to be playing at the Chepauk. And they're also going to be playing against Lucknow Super Giants, who just beat them recently. But what does this type of win on the last league game, if they are to qualify, do for the Mumbai Indians' hopes into the eliminator?
Well, they're a threat, aren't they? You don't really want to sort of come across that batting if you know they're chasing. You certainly want to be winning the toss and asking them to tell you what the wicket's worth, and you take the risk up front. There's no doubt that, you know, they've got a lot of things going from with regards to you know, their batting and their power of their batting, but there's a few things coming together with their bowling as well. So they're a dangerous side, there's no question. Put it this way, they're now compared to 6 weeks ago, they're double strength to what they were. You know, they're a double shot now, they're a single shot early in the tournament.
All right, well, there is a detailed chat to be had about Mumbai if they are to play no further part in this year's tournament, but let's have that when we know that they will not play any further part. As we know now, good news for the RCB fans, the covers are off at the Chinnaswamy. We have a delayed toss, but an on-time start, or slightly delayed start, sorry. 7:45 will be the toss, and 8 o'clock will be the first ball. So I was going back to the time when the IPL used to start at 8 o'clock, which was a glorious era for Chennai Super Kings and a few others. But anyway, 7:45 and 8, and that pretty much tells me that there's going to be no loss of overs for now. There are some showers still predicted, but we'll come to that game in just a moment. Let's just quickly wrap up the Sunrisers story. It's going to be a tough one, and I almost feel bad going back to what we've discussed as a recurring theme, Tom, the lack of teeth in their bowling today once again. And I'm sure there'll be fans saying, oh, Umran Malik's bowled today, and look, he got whacked, and Karthik Tyagi got whacked, and all season we're like, why aren't they giving these young speedsters a run? So why don't you put that in perspective as to how we should judge Sunrisers bowling first up?
Well, the Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, for a start, has had a very good campaign again. Today he bowled his 4 overs for 26, picked up a wicket. You know, ultimate professional in this format. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of question marks around one, the selection, how they've gone about, you know, bringing players in and out and having the expectations of them suddenly performing under that pressure. You know, Umran Malik and Tyagi in today's match, it was more, they had more to lose than gain in this situation. So you have to feel for those young players. You know, I think at the end of the day, the story that needs to be remembered out of this season for Sunrise is that once you identify a talent and you back a talent, you actually back them and you stick with it and you have consistency with selection, have consistency with role clarity. It's no coincidence we see, you know, the top 2 teams that have that simple recipe, and it seems to work out every time.
It is a harder thing to do when you're losing, though, Tom.
Yeah, but you can do it from the, even if you lose, you've got to hold firm. You've got to hold firm. You know, it's not a case of, you know, you give up after you've lost the first 2 games, and that's what's happened. You need to stick to the process, to what you believe in a well thought out strategy with regards to an auction plan. You have a plan in place, and then suddenly, if that's derailed after game 2, regardless of whether you win or lose, your whole strategy and your campaign's flawed. Because right at the beginning, if you're going to get an Agarwal and you're going to buy Abhishek Sharma as an opener, and you're going to have Umran Malik, and if you're going to retain Abdul Samad as one of your junior retention players, well, you back them. And that hasn't been done for the last 2 years.
Because the idea is you can't let them go because you haven't seen enough of them to come to a conclusion whether someone's good enough or not. You don't know. Because you haven't given them a big enough run or long enough run for you to assess them. So, I mean, for me, I think SRH, the first thing that, like Tom said, just stick with the plates. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you got your piece right, don't move that piece anymore. I mean, CSK, I think a couple of years ago was a great example. They had a terrible season. They started off poorly, but they did not change teams. They identified areas that they needed to make changes, and they just address those places, not the rest of the side. It seemed this year, SRH, they tried to kind of, you know, reinvent the wheel kind of a thing. They moved around pieces which were set as well.
Yeah, we thought Umran would be a shoo-in in all their games. That didn't happen.
Particularly with the impact player rule. It's even more reason, you know, players like him, it's a no-brainer that they're involved.
What it will do, though, is Umran Malik is always a story and a conversation in Indian cricket. Oh, how quickly can he become the finished product? What has a season like this done for his India chances, you think? Or do you think the Indian selection should be completely sidelining whatever's happened in the Sunrisers dugout?
I won't say completely, but it shouldn't be like the only criteria to kind of judge his performance or his form. Because I think he's still, unfortunately for me, I would have liked him to develop a little quicker than what he has. I would have liked to see him a little more. It still seems he's the same Umran Malik I saw a year or a couple of years ago. So I would like him to develop a little quicker. But then, having said that, you know, if I'm selecting the Indian side, I would still pick him and keep him in the mix and make sure that I am looking after it, as in my coaching staff looking after him, and assess based on that, not what's been happening last couple of months.
If you were to, I'm just going to give you some names. I know this is a much more detailed conversation, but if you have to make the big decisions for the franchise on who we keep and who we put into the auction, and either hope we get back at a lesser price or build around others because that hasn't worked. So I'll just give you 2 or 3 names and you can tell me what you see, what you'd like to do with them. So Harry Brook first up, Tom Moody for Sunrisers. Does he stay and you give him 1 more season? Does he go into the auction? You hope to buy him back?
I think firstly you need to revisit why you bought him to begin with, and if those principles still stand, you keep him and you reassess how you've used him. But if that's changed from the original plan, well, it would make sense to put him back into the auction and either get him back at a cheaper rate. But we've also seen, you know, players exactly benefit from that philosophy. But again, without knowing what the reasoning for them to pay what they paid to begin with and what their logic was, whether it was a long-term project like a Cameron Green, Mumbai identified him as, I don't care what he is, we see him as a 10-year player. And it may well be Sunrisers are thinking that way with Harry Brook, and well, if that's the case, well, they stick with it. Because if they see that potential in him as one of the modern-day superstars, well, you stick. You stick and hold and rethink how you used him.
All right. Mayank Agarwal at a little over 8 crore. I wonder if the last innings has changed anything.
Yeah, I guess. I think it may have. And listen, he's a proven commodity. You know what he can do. So I'm going to stick with him. Ideally, I'm going to stick with him and say, you know what, Mayank, let's forget whatever happened last season. But I think before all that, it's very important to figure out the support stuff. That's the engine room, right? And if you're getting someone new, just make sure
someone old.
Or someone old back again. But the whole idea is it has to be their team, their squad. You know, for example, I mean Kolkata, for example,
yeah,
right?
They've got to be part of the squad building, the auction.
So, exactly. Right. So I think it starts from there.
Okay.
You figure that out and let them take calls and figure out it's their squad. Let them buy into that squad or whatever. And yeah, as far as Mayank is concerned, I'm going to stick with him.
Okay. Last play I'm going to bring for both of you here is Washington Sundar at 875. I think these are the sort of thoughts that Sunrisers fans would be having. Oh, you know, this is the reason. This guy's not been valued. This guy's not given us returns. So, you know, shall we release this fellow or that fellow and give ourselves a chance to improve the squad at the auction?
I tell you, my view on Washington is I think there's a huge amount of upside with what he potentially can offer, because I think he's better than a number 7 batter, and his bowling is only going to get better. But my biggest concern with Washington Sundar is if I look back on his medical record over the last 3 years, that concerns me, because he seems to, for whatever reason, get injured more often than not, which is all part of the package. You know, if you're buying and investing in a player, you need that player to be playing, you know, most of the time, if not all the time.
All right, and he is their most expensive Indian player. Quick word?
See, yeah, the big issue here is if you let him go, I mean, and still planning to buy him back, you're not going to get him cheap.
Yeah.
Right? That's one. Secondly, if you're letting him go, would you find a better replacement?
I mean, that's, I guess, within. Can you play a Vivrant if he's your long-term player? Can you play Abhishek if he's your batter and spinner, whatever it may be? But yeah, in the auction, you may not find that.
Exactly.
No,
I mean,
that's exactly right.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This is where we'll excuse Deep Dasgupta. He's a busy man. And we've got a game coming up, and we've got a toss that's happened. Let's look at how that result affects the points table. And you'll see that Mumbai Indians have put themselves in the best possible position they could. They did not bother with net run rate. And with the 16 points they now have, they are hoping and praying for Gujarat to do them a favour, or for the weather gods to do them a favour and keep Bangalore less than 16. If RCB win by any margin, their net run rate is already healthier to that of the Mumbai Indians. So that will put them in 4th spot to set up what will be a very tasty clash in the eliminator between Lucknow and RCB. It's quite the rivalry that has been building there. And of course, we do know that that Mumbai Indians will also only play in that eliminator. Top 3 have been confirmed. 1 spot with 1 game to play for as we now build up to RCB against Gujarat Titans. Good news is that we don't have weather giving us too much of a delay, and we'll have full complement of 20 overs. We'll have RCB and Gujarat Titans, and the Titans have won the toss to start with. They will bowl first. I wonder how that just affects hopes and feelings of RCB fans who would have loved to see their team chase. They've gunned down some chases, but they also had a thumping win over Rajasthan Royals batting first. So, Tom Moody, let's get a reaction. It's our good friend Ravi Shastri at the ground wearing the
ski glasses.
Yeah, ski glasses. I was going to call them something more colourful.
The Himalayas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did go to Dharamshala, didn't he?
Yeah.
But anyway, that aside, I think that's a massive win to begin with for GT. With rain around, you always want to be in a position where you're batting second, because you can then end up with this shortened game, and you're in far better position in T20 cricket with a shortened game, because for some reason they haven't, I don't think, taken that into consideration enough, the fact that you've still got 10 wickets available to you to chase down whatever it is. That's a huge advantage So first win for Gujarat in the contest tonight, but I think also bowling first with the amount of rain that's been around and the moisture that's going to be around the ground and in the atmosphere, the ball's going to swing. And I did sort of have a little glimpse, and I think GT are unchanged.
Yes.
So Mohammad Shami is the one I was concerned about with regards to whether he's going to play or not. Is playing, and he would welcome those conditions. So he's going to be a handful up front. Would
you welcome this call by the Titans, who've been confirmed their top spot, to play their best team, even though they only have a less than 48-hour turnaround before the first qualifier?
I think those conversations would have been had with the players, certain players, and one of them being Mohammad Shami, with the medical team, and they would have made that decision jointly. He's obviously feeling good about himself. We've got to also remember GT haven't played for 5 days.
That's right.
So that 5-day break, if anything, that rest and recovery and freshening up both physically and mentally for all the squad has been a welcome break. And probably Mohammad Shami is saying, no, just give me that new ball. I want a piece of this, because I want to just get my game time rhythm back and not suddenly, expect to find it in 2 days' time.
You'll be cold otherwise, yeah. Well, I mean, RCB will play Thursday. They could be playing today on Sunday and then again an eliminator on Wednesday. If it was that kind of thing, where you're playing 3 games in 5-6,
100%.
Might have been different.
Totally different. A different conversation. But again, normally in those environments, you do have all the heads that are in concern. The bowler, the bowling coach, the head coach and the physio, the strength and conditioning. You sit down and work out what's the best thing, and ultimately you do the best thing for the player and what it looks like moving forward.
All right. So yeah, the Titans are unchanged. The defending champions are that much closer to defending their crown, and they will, by virtue of playing qualifier 1, certainly have the chance to play one more time in front of their home crowd, win or lose. In that first qualifier against CSK, they will be taking somebody on at Ahmedabad in pursuit of defending that title. As far as RCB go, there is a change. I'm not sure if it's a forced or a selection call, but Karan Sharma, the leg spinner who's done well in the absence of Hasaranga, has been left out. They've got in for the first time this season Himanshu Sharma. So he's going to get a debut in what's a massive, massive game for his franchise. We know very little of him on our Cricket Info profile. We have no competitive games recorded. So this is obviously a player they picked up from some scouting process. He bowls leg spin, so it's a like for like. Can only assume it's an injury.
Yeah, absolutely, because Karan Sharma's got a lot of experience. He's been around IPL cricket for a long time, so it must be an injury, and a big game to be making a debut, isn't it? Particularly if Cricket Info don't have any info on where he's come from, and again, it might be one of these wonderful stories where he's been discovered in some sort of net bowling situation, like an Umran Malik a few years back.
Sure.
Suddenly, this guy spins it both ways, and no one knows which way it's going. So, good luck to him.
The composition of the overseas is what intrigues me more, because even though they have won their last 2 games without Hasaranga and Hazelwood, have they gotten comfortable enough that we don't need to rush them? We don't know what their injury status is, but in a game like this, they would love to welcome at least one, if not both of those 2 back.
Well, I think Hazelwood's gone.
All right, he's gone.
I think he's gone back, and Hasaranga has got a slight niggle, and I'm not 100% sure whether that's he's completely recovered from that. And to be fair, Bracewell's come into the side
and done the job.
And he's also adds a little bit of batting depth to the side that we've talked about, after the big 3 look a bit vulnerable. So Bracewell, even though he hasn't had a chance really to prove that with the bat yet, but he's got pedigree that he's got the capabilities of having an impact with the bat.
If you've been in these situations before where you've had to watch the afternoon game to know exactly what your fate is, how much of that do you sense plays on the emotions going into a big game like this? Have you just sort of, does everyone not watch it and you're just getting updates from someone saying, I remember, okay, or are you watching that game almost taking a lot of emotional sort of information from it, and then does it affect how you approach your own game?
You can't help but not look. Everyone's different. Some people want updates every minute. Some people actually want to sort of watch it on their phone. And it's one of those things you can't control. What you try to do is just, let's ignore this, focus on what we need to do, type of thing. But it's like anything in life, you know, if there's something happening in the background that affects your future, you want to know what's happening in the background. Just the way life is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, in some regard, I guess, given the NRR situation doesn't come in, it perhaps is a meaningless result for RCB. They knew that they needed to win in order to go through, and any margin of victory would work, given Mumbai Indians' net run rate is the poorer of the two. It also confirms Rajasthan Royals, who bow out of the tournament. What a disappointing second half it's been for them. We'll have more chat on that as we review their season. You'll get Tom's thoughts too, but we've got a few minutes, so let's just focus on this. Batting first, all their eggs effectively seem to be in the basket of the big three of Faf, Kohli and Glenn Maxwell. With the threat of rain, batting first against a strong bowling lineup, how do you see them starting today?
I'd imagine cautiously, because I think the ball is going to move around a bit, and there's no doubt that Mohammad Shami is a major threat. So there's got to be the respect on what he's going to potentially provide, but it's also, you don't want to be that respectful that you miss out on a half tracker or a half volley that's coming your way. I think Faf will do exactly what he's done all season, and that's just take the bull by the horns. His season has been quite remarkable, and it's been certainly one that you could look back and admire, because he has set the tempo for that top order. You know, Virat in the last game in Hyderabad, an amazing 100, and his tempo from the start to the finish was the same. But Faf has not altered from that template from game one. We have been critical in observations at times around Virat slowing down outside of power play. But I think that sort of is behind him now. So I think if they both get set, I don't see that template changing, and it can't change, because their best chance of winning is by, you know, making sure they maximise their totals, because when they have fallen short is when it's a case of, oh, they're 15 runs short or they're 20 runs short.
All right, let's have a look at the teams very quickly. Start with the home team. They're back at home. Won last time as the RCB were travelling for 5 games. There were state elections, and they didn't have a great run of it. Maybe change in local elections could have a change in fortunes, but that's the team they've gone with. Faf du Plessis has full overseas complement of players. Vishak Vijay Kumar plays in that too, and you expect Himanshu Sharma to then become the impact sub, given that was mentioned by Faf at the toss. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same team. No Karan Sharma, of course, is the difference that we've already pointed out. Let's have a look at Gujarat Titans too, unchanged. They ended up playing their last game on Monday against Sunrisers Hyderabad, so they've had a bit of a break, as Tom Moody points out. Dasun Shanaka keeps his place, didn't have a lot to do in that game. We'll see if this is indeed the team they go with in the playoffs. We did think Josh Little would be back and available for this game, but until I have confirmation that he's actually back and ready to go. If he was, are you surprised that he's not back in straight away?
I'm very surprised. Yeah, he to me would be an important member of that side, particularly a left arm option. And we've seen the challenge that Virat Kohli and Faf, for instance, with that left arm over, with that angle, can provide. So surprised he's not there. Maybe they just feel that the long haul flight and everything else, they want to make sure that he's absolutely fine for the next match. But yeah, it does seem odd.
Is it possibly the Titans saying, no, this is now what we want to play at what could be a tricky surface at the Chepauk, that we'd rather have Dasun Shanaka's experience, middle order, low middle order, couple of overs, and not need?
I just can't see how. They've already got that covered, haven't they, with Miller and Tuatia and other options, because they bat deep. So I think it's a real luxury. I'd rather have the luxury more on the bowling side as an impact bowler.
All right, just as we were about to get a prediction from Tom Moody and the players were about to walk off, seems like the steady drizzle has resumed and the covers are coming back on at the Chinnaswamy. It could be that kind of day. Rather have it before a ball is bowled, and if there is a truncated game or a rain curtailed game, at least RCB would know how many overs they've got. So we're just going to hold on for a little while before we get to that predictions aspect, but it gives me a chance to just have a chat about the likes of Noor Ahmed bowling at the Chinnaswamy for the first time. Now we talk about the middle overs, Tom, but I guess taking down Rashid Khan and Noor Ahmed, that should be a key difference maker in this game. At the Chinnaswamy, 2 spinners against what could be a set Kohli or a Maxwell who comes in?
Yeah, it'd be a challenge, but then again, he would have spent hours with Rashid Khan talking to him about, you know, bowling at this venue, bowling against this opponent, and, you know, Rashid Khan would be the perfect mentor. So you can guarantee they would have sat around the room with some saffron tea and discussed it in great detail. From what I'm led to believe, Noor Ahmed is that type of character. He will try to drag any sort of advantage or information out of anyone to better himself. He's someone that is always on the lookout for self-improvement.
Yeah. If we do get a really short game, this is just many ifs and buts, does that increase RCB's chances, do you think? Let's say we get an 8, 9, 10 over game, or is that now still skewed in favour of the team that's won the toss and is chasing?
I'd rather be chasing. End of the day, that's why that toss was so important. And RCB will be thinking, and I've been in this position many times before, as a player and as a coach, where suddenly you have the toss and then 5 minutes later it starts raining. It's like a case of, well, hang on, we should really have a re-toss because the ball hasn't been bowled. But there is an advantage, whether we like it or not, if you're winning the toss.
Yeah, and unfortunately the forecast is one that we'll just have to hope and pray is more wrong than right, because we have a significant amount of rain predicted from now right up until midnight. Goes to the 30-40% as we get closer to 9 o'clock. And closer to 11 o'clock, but we know that if we can just stay away long enough to get us a game, that's all we need. We do not want this decided on the basis of a washout. So all right, we'll leave it here. Assuming we get anything between a 15 and 20 over game, are we thinking about any kind of score that you'd need to get to keep the Titans at bay, especially with RCB having to win this?
15 or 20.
Why do you give me two numbers?
Oh, look, I can't predict the score here. All I am predicting is I'm favouring GT in this contest because everything's sort of pointing in their favour. Yeah,
in which case that's music to the ears of the Mumbai Indians as well. So it's a big thank you to Tom Moody. Let's take a break and hope that we don't have a longer break than we would like. We'd like to be back in exactly an hour and 40 minutes to talk about the first innings. So we look forward to Tom's thoughts then. So we'll be back with Visit Saudi presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out. On a game like this, nothing better than the ESPN Cricket for mobile app to have you covered. We've got people at the ground. They'll be posting the latest updates and you'll get them in real time on our live report and our ball by ball page. So much to play for on the final league game of the season. Let's hope we actually get one so we don't have to depend on a washout. We'll see you at what we hope is the end of the first innings.